Yeah, being a father is hard. My mind be deep in the future while thinking about scars. Inevitable to sift out character flaws. The moments I know my baby gon' slip in the fall. Pray for strength through it all. Being a father is hard. Knowing the influence set in play from the start. To strip it down of identity deep in our heart. The gender wars and confusion and stopping nothing to mold them till they forget who they are.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Dedicated Dads podcast. This is our second episode, and we're glad that you guys joined us, where we just want everyone to know there's no such thing as a perfect dad, just a dedicated one. The Dedicated Dads podcast is a space just for us to have real conversations about fatherhood, parenting, leadership, legacy. Our goal here is to encourage each other. I mean, we all go through something. There are dads here in the forum and in the community that have gone through the things that we've gone through. So we're going to discuss everything from everyday wins, challenges of raising children, relationships, personal growth, and purpose. This podcast is going to celebrate dads who show up, stay present, and lead with intention. I'm your host, Bishop. We have an amazing show lined up for you today, and our guest is Chris Jeremy. Chris Jeremy is from Elk Grove, California. He's married with two daughters, one who attends Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. The other just graduated from high school and is going to attend the University of the Pacific. Chris is a full-time realtor and life coach and health insurance agent. He has a passion for helping other people obtain their goals in life, whether it's a new home or simply protecting their family's uncertainty. Two quotes that Chris likes to live by: the pain you feel today will be the strength you draw upon tomorrow. That's a really good one. Never heard that one. And when you're full of love, you confuse people who are full of shit. So with that being said, let's bring Chris onto the program. Let's welcome Chris. Chris, how you feeling today, sir?
I'm good.
How you feeling, Chris?
I'm good.
Doing
Blessed
good?
to be live. Yep.
Yes.
Live.
Thanks for joining us on the podcast. Really appreciate your time and expertise in the matter of the mental stress of fatherhood. With that being said, let's jump in, and I will ask you the first question, which is, what are the mental stresses associated with fatherhood?
Oh man, there's so many stressors to pick from, but I guess the top three I would say is provide, protect, and to teach. So number one, the first thing I found out when my wife was, pregnant, I told myself as a young man growing up, I'm not going to be one of those dads that are just going to be like, well, I'm not going to raise my own kids. I'm going to be there to provide for them. Put food in their belly, milk, get them some diapers, maybe need a new pair of shoes, anything and everything that they needed to live and survive and thrive in this world. I was going to be that person to help provide for that. And I wasn't just going to leave my girlfriend or my wife girlfriend at the time. I wasn't just going to leave her hanging. And at the end of the day, that's that baby, that child is a part of you. It's an extension of you, and you can't deny yourself life like that. You can't just be like, oh nope, I'm not going to help my own self out. It's kind of you're kind of messing up your own legacy in that aspect. The other thing I like to talk about is just protecting that child. A lot of them are, especially in today's world, man, there's a lot of stuff, that crazy stuff going on. You could just flip on the news. Epstein is the most famous one. But it happens every day, and no neighborhood is a bubble, right? It could happen next door. It could happen in the next city over. Someone gets kidnapped, molested, whatever. And it's not just strangers. It could be like direct family members. That's a scary thing too, because that has happened. So you want to protect your child not only from those, crazy threats of people that are trying to abuse or actually physically hurt your child, Um, I kind of sorry, lost my train of thought there, but just there's those threats, but then also like, hey, I want to protect them in the aspect of making sure they don't get sick, making sure that like they're not going to get hurt. Simple things like putting on a seatbelt, um, protecting them from physical abuse, right? Teaching them how to, and that kind of leads into my next thing is teaching them how to stand up for themselves. You're not going to let your child be bullied at school. So
Absolutely.
if there's ever a problem, they know how to protect themselves, emotionally, physically if needed. Even though I've never put them in any kind of martial art, they know how to stand up for themselves, and a lot of that comes from just teaching them like what's right and wrong and what's fair. And I'd say a lot of it goes to just my upbringing and religion, honestly. Living a Catholic Christian life and following the Word of God, doing unto others what you would want to have done unto you, and just being living in a life of servitude and service. And I think, living that lifestyle, not just me living a life of servitude for my family, but for my community as well. And to me, I find there's a purpose in life to that. So yeah, those are the three things that I would talk about. It's just again, top three on my priority list would be to provide for your children, protect them, and teach them, how to be young adults. And my kids are adults now. I got a 21 and an 18-year-old now.
I know, and the time goes fast. Before,
it goes super fast. It
yeah.
goes super fast.
So to go back to something that you brought up when you were speaking about just providing for your kids, not only financially, but like you said, emotionally, physically being present for them. How do you personally handle the provider pressure? That pressure that comes with, the bills have to be paid, or your daughter wants to do the cheerleading. These things all cost money. Unfortunately, no activity that kids want to do now is free. So there's a
Yeah.
fair amount of pressure, whether that be the schedule, because I know your daughter's a cheerleader and you're a cheer dad. So the pressure comes from having to balance work and going to cheer competitions in Florida or Tennessee or what have you. So how do you deal with that provider pressure?
I guess, one of the first thing I'm going to add another P to that. Okay. And this is key for all the fellas out there, is that P is partner. Who you're raising this child with. Okay.
Yes.
And that's very, very important, because it's hard, and I admire all the single parents out there that are raising their children. They do what it got, they do what they have to do to get their child happy. But having that partner on there, it alleviates a lot of the pressure to provide all these things. And what it does, it allows you to disperse your time, effort, and energy amongst all the other activities. So me, because I have a really good partner, she works in the public service. She helps us. She helps our family get the benefits. Me, I work in the private industry. I'm self-employed. So what's my job? I got go out there and get that money, but at the same time, I got the freedom of choice to go pick up the kids after school, bring them to these other activities. So I would, that's to me, that's the number one thing, is making sure you pick the right partner. Um, because it takes, it's parents, plural. And
Correct. Yeah.
it's plural, man. It's hard to do it by yourself. It's not to say that it can't be done, because there's been plenty of people that have done it. But man, your child, your daughters are going to have that much more of a head start if there's two people involved in their lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep.
So next question for you, Chris, is how do you navigate through what's called depleted father syndrome? So depleted father syndrome, for the people who don't know, it describes the deep physical or emotional exhaustion that dads face when juggling the demanding careers, societal expectations to be present, to walk daughters down the aisles, to be there when the prom date comes. So how do you handle or navigate or make sure you don't get depleted as the time goes by. I know you just spoke about having a good partner, which I'm sure goes a long way to keeping you energized and recharged. But personally, if there are times where you feel overwhelmed, how do you manage it?
One of the first things, and you've probably seen this, you follow me on Instagram, but every day I post at least I try to, I post a little story about giving myself at least 1 hour a day just for my physical health and my mental health. That's my me time. And that's time for my self improvement, time to just gather my thoughts together. And there's a saying out there by Paul Epstein. He talks about winning your Mondays, and I apply that not just on a weekly level, but like on a daily level. So if you can get the hardest thing out of out of the day done and completed, first thing upon waking up, everything else seems like cake, man. So me, I like to CrossFit, and that is a very demanding, rigorous exercise. You could be lifting super heavy weights or running long distances, but they're short and sweet, and I get my workouts done in an hour. And a lot of the times when I'm doing these workouts, I'm thinking about family, right? I'm thinking about family, and I'm also thinking about myself. But amongst all those things, when things like really start hitting the fan, when you're in true survival mode, the number one thing you just start thinking about is just breathing air, right? How to breathe properly.
Yeah.
So it's just when I get myself in a situation where, man, I'm like physically drained or even stressed mentally, just take a breath, and getting that workout knocked out first thing in the morning, I've already primed my body to just be like adapted to that pressure. It's like, man, I already ran like a mile and did 50 push-ups and 100 pull-ups and 300 sit-ups. It's just like, man, that's nothing to me. You know what I mean? It's just like I can get through this. And like I said, if you look at my quote right here, right? You see my quote, the pain you feel today is the strength you draw on tomorrow. And that's so true nowadays. With me, when I was a kid, I didn't. My sister had it easy. She's a millennial. Not to make fun of millennials, but I mean, I had a different upbringing. I got BTA, slipper to ass, whatever was available to ass. Beat down. But for me, I wasn't gonna raise my kids like that. And I just told myself I need to be more present for them and listen to them, and just I already took care of me in the morning, right?
Yeah.
So mentally and physically, I'm there and ready for them. I mean, not to say that there are times where I do, I am just physically exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
Mentally, it's like, no, my daughter needs me, I'm gonna show up.
Yeah.
So it's more of like it's more of a not a reactive type of thing, but more of a proactive, like, I know this is coming my way, I'm gonna get myself ready for it. So if I stay ready, there's no need to get ready, right?
Yeah, I agree. And just like you said, when you find yourself being overwhelmed, just the breathing aspect of it, and from one athlete to another. I remember in college when I started running cross country, and I was a track runner in high school. So they were like, "Oh, try cross country." I'm like, "Sure." And I mean, a mile and a half in, I'm breathing mouth wide open. I couldn't catch my breath. And the coach was like, if you learn to control your breathing, everything else slows down. And that's really what helped me, get to the point where I was able to run a 5 mile in 27 minutes, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do it. Because literally, like, those first few months when I'm just trying to draw on my own strength and just do it kind of my way, I'm like, okay, this is what I know from track. I'm going to hold my breath, I'm going to push through, and then in 10 seconds, I'll breathe. Unfortunately, cross country is 5 miles, so you can't hold your breath that long.
Yeah.
So I'm now running uphill, like literally I'm huffing, the girls are passing me, and the coach is like, listen, I told you, you got to learn how to control the breathing. The
Yeah.
breathing kind of helps you slow the things down, helps your body process, helps your mind work better. Obviously, if you're in survival mode, like you said, not breathing is not good. So the more
Right.
you breathe through things, and you, like you said, you do CrossFit, so when that weight is heavy, whether you're doing burpees or lunges or your pull-ups, it's that breath that kind of gives you that last push through.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really appreciate that. That was a really good one. So I have another question for you. How do
Okay.
you ask for help from your community? Now, I know you said earlier that you draw on your Catholic Christian uh, upbringing and beliefs. So how do you ask for help from your community, whether that be your priest or pastor, whether that be, your brother-in-law or other dads in your community? What is your style and how do you ask for help when you need it?
Let me ask you this: what kind of help are we asking about? What are we talking about? What kind of
Well,
help?
it could be anything. It could be advice. I know I've come to you for advice because we're friends, and your daughter is just a little bit older than mine, but still, being a cheer dad was new for me.
Mhm.
So I'm like, okay, well, how the hell do I do this? You know what I mean? Running the Starbucks and the bows and the glitter and the packing the uniforms and the shoes and the boxes. So like
Yeah.
anything, it doesn't have to be just financial help. Like I said, emotional help. When you feel like, you're breaking down, what kind of things or who or how do you ask other people to help you with that?
You know, the key thing there is just being able to be humble and open up, right? And not act like you know everything or like nothing's wrong. Because if there is something and you do have a question, you got to be able to open up and just ask somebody. You know what I mean? Because and for me, it's like if I'm lost, I'll do what I can to you know get back on the right track. And I'm talking about just driving, right? Like in a weird city, it's just like, man, I would be friendly to somebody and be like, hey, do you know how to get to this place, or how do you get to, you know, how do we do that, or just befriending people and being open and honest with yourself and just letting people know and being vulnerable, right? And just letting people know that like, hey, I really don't understand how to deal with this. You know, there's a lot of guys out there that that are unwilling to do that. But then there's also some guys that are just, you know, they want the shortcut. They just ask you the question, right?
Yeah.
It's and sometimes it's like, man, did you really just think about what you just asked me? It's like
Yeah.
sometimes it's common sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but just asking for help in your community, it all depends, man. Like I think of my community, your community extends in very different parts of, your community could be like your family, it could
Hmm.
be your cheer community, it could be your child's school community, it could be your work community. Just, I guess just finding those resources and understanding like what what those resources, how they can best help you and suit you, right? Like, Danny, you're not going to ask me anything about like, stand up. I mean, you're going to ask your feedback, but I mean, like, hey, ask me about, I don't know, something that you're really good at. Like, you played professional ball for a minute, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I, putting on weight and hitting them, getting on the proper diet to get to prime conditioning, I guess you would
Yeah.
say, right?
Hmm.
To,
Yep.
to perform, right?
Yeah.
So just being aware of who can help you and how, right? The asking for the wife's stuff. I mean, in other dads like me, I've never had to ask anybody else for money.
Hmm.
That's just me. I mean,
Well, that's a blessing for sure.
yeah, it's again, being able to provide and protect me. I don't really, I don't want to ask my wife for stuff.
I
you
get it.
know,
Yeah.
it's just like, hey, I'm doing my thing. if you see me struggling, it would be nice if you ask me if, do you need a hand with something? Or if you
Hmm.
see me down, because that's what a good partner does, right? They see
Yeah.
when like, hey, the other half is like struggling, then yeah, you're gonna offer something,
Yeah, I got you.
right? So yeah,
Okay.
just being humble with yourself and just you know, asking people.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, the vulnerability, and that also comes with kind of just like self-examination. A
Mhm.
lot of guys, we all grow up, guys don't cry, guys don't share emotion, guys don't show weakness. And I feel like that's a problem that a lot of guys have now when it comes to mental health issues. A lot of guys are in relationships with people who could help them. They just refuse to ask for help or, like you said, be vulnerable. And it doesn't always come in the form of asking. Like you said, having a good partner is a very important part of it. It's for the partner to be able to see, no different than, okay, you do CrossFit, you're lifting weights. If you're on the bench press and I'm spotting and I see your arms start to shake, I think it's probably about time I reach down and grab that bar and help you pick it up. Otherwise, we're
Yeah,
going to have an accident on our hands. So it
right.
also comes with, like you said, your partners or your community kind of just being aware of not only what you can handle, but just kind of your moods, your temperament, people who know you. If you come around me, I'm always happy. If you came around me and I
Yeah,
was down, I mean, someone would ask, okay, what's going on? This
yeah,
is not like you. You know what I mean? Or if you see
yeah.
somebody doing something that they otherwise wouldn't do. So I think that's very important points that you made. And I appreciate your honesty and openness in sharing, not just with me, but with the dedicated dad community and other fathers out there who are in this position of being fathers. Some people get thrust into fatherhood earlier than others. Some people wait a little longer, but no one figures it out. No one's perfect. It's a ever changing thing. As having daughters, it was a different relationship when they were 5, different relationship
Hmm.
when they were 12, definitely a different relationship in the teens.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I'm dealing with the same thing now. I remember my daughters used to run and grab me every time I walked through the door, and now it's like, oh, hey, dad, and they're
Yeah.
off doing what they want to do in the rooms on TikTok or whatever. But coming with the flexibility of giving them the room to be able to express themselves, and being a dad who's just present, and the kids knowing that when they need something from you, dad's only a phone call or a text or a room away. I'm sure gives them a ton of comfort in knowing and having a dad like you. So I appreciate again your
Mhm.
honesty and sharing. And I want to offer you the floor to give your final thoughts about everything that we spoke about, or anything extra that you may want to add.
Um, when it comes down to raising your child, you got to remember that there is a piece of you in them, and then as well as your partner. You know, let them let them make their mistakes, right? Sometimes you just got to let them make their mistakes, and don't reprimand them if they did make that mistake, because they're gonna learn. They have to learn. And if it takes another attempt, or sometimes they may have to make a mistake 2 or 3 times. But that's what a good father does. He oversees their child and lets that it gives them the freedom to grow and explore and do and try different things. And in some cases, they might teach you a thing or two just by what they do with their own experience. You it's just as a witness, and it's like, man, a prime example is this. Yeah, I went to college. I went to college UC Davis, local here in Sacramento. I applied to different schools, Irvine, Riverside, and I was just like, oh, let me just pick a college, and went through the whole motions of it. I didn't really have a whole ton of help from my parents. They just said, well, you're just gonna go to college, and I was just like, okay, well, I got to figure this out on my own. And didn't really put a whole lot of thought into it. I just like, well, I'll just go to Davis. Pick one. I had some friends going there, and was able to graduate. Had a blast in college. Don't get me wrong, it was fun. But when I look at my kids, it's like, man, what they really enjoyed their high school years. They they took full advantage of it. They were able to do a lot of things. It was a very rare occasion for me to tell them no on something, and that was just more of me telling them no was more of an accountability factor. Like, hey, you said you were going to do this, and you didn't do it, therefore you can't go to this until this gets done. So just really holding them accountable. But I mean, to get back to my story is, my kids, they really put some thought and effort into where they wanted to go for college, right? And this is what I learned from them. My older daughter, all of the colleges that she picked were near the coast and the beach, and she said, they did it because they love the weather. The older one, she really put some thought into her college and says, hey, I'm really picking this school because it's hands on, and it's like, once you graduate from there, you can get a job real easily because people are looking for you, especially if you graduate from the school. The younger one, she got recruited by University of Pacific to be part of their inaugural D1 stunt team. I never had that opportunity, because I played sports in high school, but I didn't really have the same passion as she did for her and her cheer. I played football, but I was like, man, I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm doing this for fun. But she's same way, but she had a true passion for it. She lived it. She practiced it, and now she got recruited to a D1 school and is going to be able to study from a private school. So those are the couple of things that I learned from just watching my kids grow, and I think that's one of the most important things too, as well, is when it comes down to relationships. You got to let them. You can't be so protective of them that you're telling everybody, go away, right? It's good to be that fatherly figure, but get to know who they're hanging out with, who they like, right? And you'll have an idea of who's bad news or whatnot. But thank God none of my kids got pregnant in high school, because we groomed them to make good decisions. And one thing that you always want to tell your kid when they're going out with their friends. Okay, one of the things that we always told our two daughters before they left is we always asked them told them make good decisions before they left. It was our way of saying, I love you, come back home safely, and make good decisions.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, we appreciate your time today and joining the podcast, our second episode. So Chris, you're highly valued in my circle of friends. Either that, or I don't have really good friends, and you're just
no, you got a lot of good friends.
You're just you're one of my good ones. And like I said, I always appreciate your honesty and hanging out with you and whatnot. So Chris, before we go, please give the people your social media handles for your real estate, for your insurance. Let people know where they can find you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm mostly on Instagram, and it's C. Let me just go and look it up real quick. I think it's C Jeremy, CJaromay, and that's at my Instagram account. That connects over to my Facebook. You just pop into one of those, and you'll be able to see it. I do plan on having a YouTube channel, and it's kind of showcasing different houses, different businesses that I'm selling, buying and selling, and importance of having real estate. Actually, Danny, one of the coolest things that I did recently is I helped out, and my younger daughter was in Girl Scouts, and one of the Girl Scout moms, she had reached out to me years later, which is like, hey, I see that you're a realtor. Do you remember me? I was so-and-so's mom. Can you help my son buy a house? I was like, yeah, I'd be honored to do that. You know what I mean? And guess how old this kid is?
Is he 21?
No, I think he's like 23.
Wow.
And he got his first house already, bro.
Yeah, that's young for home ownership. Yeah, kudos to him. That's big.
but it's so that I was like, man, I want to get my kid in a head start like that. You know what I mean? Like, I wish somebody would have told me, like, get a house or
Yeah.
start your life insurance early. Just start early, because there's a lot of mistakes that I made. But you know what? It's in the past. There's nothing you can do about it. And I'm not going to sit here and cry about it.
Yeah.
But definitely moving forward, you just got to keep that in the back of your mind. Be like, okay, I need to make better decisions, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Chris, we thank you for your time, like I said, and joining the podcast. If you need to find Chris, as he said earlier, you can find him at Jeromay, CJAROMAY on Instagram, which are linked to his Facebook account. He is a fabulous real estate agent. And Chris, we thank you for your time today, and we'll see you around, Chris.
Yeah, appreciate you, Danny.
Of course. Thanks, Chris.
All right.
So that was our first episode with a guest. Our first episode was just me. This is our first episode with a guest. So we are appreciative of Chris Jeromay for sharing his time and his knowledge about what he does with his kids and how he's chosen to live his life and the things that have helped him. As dads, we all need help at times, whether that's from a partner, whether that's from a father figure, whether that's from a friend, just asking for advice. So my takeaways from this episode, from the things that Chris shared, were be vulnerable. There's nothing wrong with reaching out for help, whether that be through church, whether that be through community, like you said, school dads, school community for your kids, play dates, things of that nature, where you get to talk to other adults who are in a similar situation as you. He also leaned a lot on his own personal ability to be able to manage mental stress with working out. Now, there are people who can't work out. So I urge you to find something that helps you to cope with stress, as opposed to letting it build up, whether that be a hobby or an activity, whether that's video games, whether that's doing puzzles, going for walks. For people who are limited physically, who can't work out, there are other things you can do to kind of help your mind relax and alleviate that kind of stress and pressure. So we thank you guys for joining us on our first episode. Our episodes will be loaded weekly on our YouTube page at Dedicated Dads Online. Please make sure you go and subscribe to the page. We are also on Instagram at Dedicated Dads Online on Instagram and TikTok as well. So if you found our video helpful, if you're looking forward to seeing what our next episodes are going to be, we will be dropping them weekly, every Thursday. We'll have a different guest. We'll have a different topic. And then we'll start going live to let people come in and ask their questions live while we have our interviewee live on camera. So if you have questions that we may not have answered, you'll have the ability to jump on and ask us questions, to give feedback, and to elaborate, because just because we are the host and interviewee of the podcast doesn't mean we have all the answers. We're just sharing the information that we have, and there's information from our community that we can grow from as well. So again, we thank you guys for tuning in. We ask that you share, that you like and subscribe to the channel, Dedicated Dads Online.
Father, indeed, the olive oil from my mama is still in the reach. Ironic how it done find its way back to my seed. Find the strength that I need to be all that she need. Truly aware how I'm seen outside the walls of my home. An artist the most, driven by ego alone. The broken bones that I hold from the stones that been thrown repair themselves in the moment I smile in the light. Learning to heal on my own. Lately my body is sore. The way to be